Graffiti has been a part of the landscape of cities for decades. And damn near from the time this whole thing started, these same cities have declared war on Graff. And just here in the United States, countless billions of dollars have been spent to crack down on both Graff and riders. But despite all this money that's been spent, all these different crackdowns, all these raids, all the sentences that have been handed out to riders, graffiti still endures. And cities are no closer to finding a way to deal with Graff than they were when this whole thing started. And that's because, in my opinion, cities need Graff. There's a couple of different ways that you could look at the statement that I just made. And you can make the argument that cities need color, they need art, and they need public art, and public art is very beneficial for the people that live in cities. And somebody out there might have already made this video, and if somebody has, I'd like to see it and I'd like to hear their take on this subject. But I have to tell you guys, this is not where I'm coming from in this video. My thoughts on this subject are very different. But before getting into why cities need Graff, there's something else that needs to be spoken on. And that is why cities need poverty for poor people. And some of you guys might hear that statement, you might be like, hey Connor, what the hell does that have to do with Graff? And I'll have to remind you guys that a lot of us in this thing called Graff, a lot of your favorite writers and the dude that you're currently watching all came out of poverty, as did this whole thing in the first place. And unfortunately, most of us that are born into poverty remain in poverty for the rest of our lives, and we don't find a way out. And living in poverty and dealing with some of the side effects of poverty is why a lot of us get involved in Graff in the first place. So if a city was looking to tackle its graffiti problem, it would make a lot of sense for them to start with poverty and its side effects. But like I said, cities need poverty and they need poor people, whether those poor people do graffiti or not. But it's not just cities that need poverty. Capitalism itself needs poverty and needs an underclass of people to serve the wealthy in order to function. And there's going to be people that say that there's no particular strain of capitalism that promotes this. And if you look into capitalist theory, you're not going to find anything about an underclass subservient to the wealthy. To which I would reply, some capitalist theory on a piece of paper isn't going to force you to do anything. But the people that run and benefit from these systems absolutely will. In the US currently, we're oriented towards what's called the service economy. This is in comparison to when our economy used to be based off manufacturing. And when our economy was based off manufacturing, the working class and poor worked in factories, they worked in foundries, and they worked on the docks and in logistics. But in present times, your working class and poor are doing things like customer service. They do security, they're maids, they're concierges, and especially a lot of people deliver food and groceries. And unfortunately, a lot of people can't get by on working just one of these jobs, so they end up working 2 or 3. And that's not accidental, because for these industries to ensure maximum profitability, for their CEOs and executives to make the most money and reap the most profits, these positions have to pay as little as possible. And if the people working these jobs carry social stigma and they don't have a lot of options, and they're living check to check, they're gonna find themselves clinging onto these jobs to ensure their survival. But a lot of folks dealing with these circumstances aren't just low on cash, they're also super deep into debt. And it's this debt especially that further binds them to these positions, to exploitative management, and to the system as a whole. And on a very, very basic level, this is how a lot of poor people stay poor. And the only future that they envision for themselves is continuing to serve as cogs in the system, pick up these little luxuries here and there, maybe take a trip every couple years and grind, toil, and have nothing to show for it. And the neighborhoods that poor folks live in stay poor for as long as they live in them. And anybody that ever grew up in a neighborhood like this can tell you that you see the same social issues play out day after day for decades, and a lot of times nothing changes. And the presence of graffiti, this thing that we love so much, adds another layer of stigma to these neighborhoods. It's also been claimed that things like graffiti encourage further criminal activity and contribute to higher levels of crime. But in my own lived experience, I can tell you I've never seen the system try to address the issues that create criminals. And that's because, in addition to Graff, cities need crime too. When I say that cities need crime, I want to be as clear as possible about what I mean. And what I'm not saying is that cities need people breaking into cars and just assaulting each other on the street. But the informal or just outright illegal economy is essential to cities, and it's essential to the world economy as well. If you need proof of this, think about world powers like the United States, Russia, and China. Each of these powers, whether it's in their own territory or close by, has a city or a country or a whole region that serves as a venue for the shadow economy. And in addition to providing housing for the poorest classes of workers, poor neighborhoods in cities serve a similar function. In these kind of neighborhoods, people buy narcotics, they pick up escorts, and especially, they find people willing to work on a cash basis under the table. And at the end of the day, there isn't a class of people on earth that doesn't like doing or buying illegal stuff. But people with some bread don't want any of that going on where they live. But they're more than happy with this stuff happening in poor neighborhoods as long as it stays in them. In analyzing how all this is set up, you might question the role of the cops. But before speaking on them further, it's worth stating that a major driving factor, if not the major driving factor of criminal activity, is poverty. And poverty is a side effect of capitalism. Naturally, any police strategy that doesn't address poverty is not going to address crime in any meaningful way. And maybe the cops shouldn't be the ones addressing poverty, and maybe some other entity should. But because nobody does, these issues persist. And once again, given that capitalism needs poor people, it makes a lot of sense that they do. However, just like the whole rest of the system, the cops need something from poor communities also. And what they need are results. And if the higher-ups in police departments want to keep their jobs, and if they want to keep their budgets especially, they're going to need some verifiable results of what they're doing. And unfortunately, this is where graffiti and graffiti writers come into play. And we might be the easiest fools to get results from. We're not united in any kind of meaningful way, and we spend a lot of time beefing with each other. But especially, we go out there, break the law, take a picture of it, and show the whole world. But aside from us making for some easy targets, there's another facet at play when it comes to graffiti. And outside of politics and law enforcement, there's a great value in what we do vis-a-vis cities. And that's because there's a whole industry built around us hitting up. I want you guys to use your imaginations for a moment and picture a stream of revenue like a river. As this river flows along, parts of it break off and create new rivers, and thus new streams of revenue. And with us hitting up, multiple streams of revenue get generated. For law enforcement entities, this stream of revenue is their overtime, especially for investigators, and it's their departmental budgets. For the vendors of products that cops use, it's their contracts. And for those of us that are unlucky enough to end up doing some time, it's the guards' salaries, it's their overtime, and it's all the contracts that get paid out from these prisons. It's also worth noting that in the United States, we have prisons that are privately run for profit. And convicts in these prisons make products that the prisons sell. You also have police unions that collect dues from their members. And it's not uncommon for this dues to get paid out as campaign contributions for politicians. And if a higher up in a police department establishes a good relationship with a politician, they can find themselves being politically appointed to a better position. The private sector gets paid off graft too, and companies that buff and replace windows on private property sometimes also get contracts from cities. And personally, I get the impression that you can follow the money from Graff to pretty much everywhere, and it's a lot of bread. Like I said at the start of this video, it's billions of dollars, and who can you think of that's willing to give all that up? And that's why, in my opinion, cities need Graff, and why you'll never see it fully suppressed. It's worth noting that Graff is not something that you can fully suppress anyway. And for as long as somebody finds some value in going to a wall or going to a hand railing and hitting their name up, people will do it. But in addressing the issues that create writers, graffiti can be seriously curtailed. The simplest outcome of this is that there would be less writers in the mix. And with less writers, there would be less Graff. And on the surface, this is what cities and society want. But because we represent a source of cheap labor and we serve as a useful distraction, maybe that's why it doesn't happen. And if you were to ask me, it's not a maybe. And given that poverty is a driving factor of criminal activity, with less poverty, you would have less crime. I can also add that with less street crime, more attention will be paid to stuff like municipal corruption. And if you've ever lived in a big city and seen a pothole on your street, get a tiny layer of concrete to fill it in, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and ask yourself, who the hell is getting paid off this? You might actually get an answer. But maybe not if you're constantly worried about crime and your personal safety. And maybe not if somebody keeps tagging up your business or your house. And cities need us for this reason especially. And unfortunately, every time we go out there and do what we love, we play right into their hands. Worse, most of us don't even know that this is all going on, and we stumble around deaf, dumb, and blind. We beef with each other, we fight with each other, and we embrace the most frivolous elements of our culture. But for as long as cities need cheap sources of labor, black zones for commerce, and easy crime statistics, this is gonna be our fate. And us, the side effects of capitalism side effects, will continue to go out in those streets, hit up, get busted, work jobs, and hope for something better. And maybe it's time we really tried to figure out what that something better is.